everyone, I'm Lindsay Lewis, editor of Building Enclosure. Thank you for watching. Today, I'm joined by John Dinanzio, an editorial advisor for Building Enclosure and president of Paragon Roofing. John is joining me today to discuss COVID-19 and the construction industry, where we are currently, anything he's been experiencing on the job site, and any possible changes that could come to our industry in way of building code changes or even a shortage of materials. Hi, John. Thank you for joining me today.
Hi, Lindsay. Happy to be here.
I figured I'd ask you some questions about construction and COVID and what we're experiencing in the industry right now. Just to start off, what changes do you foresee from this shutdown on exterior construction?
Well, in terms of the projects, a lot of things, I think one of the main issues right now is nobody is quite sure how long this is going to go, and what effects it's going to have on the economy and other things. So in terms of construction, we had a number of projects that were slated to go earlier this year. They've been postponed until next year. We have, in the last month or two, we've seen the increase of some of the projects, but you know, the other issue going forward is going to be, we're always going to have buildings of some type. But I think one of the main things that's going to happen from this is the types of buildings that we have might change. The uses of these buildings might change. We're seeing more people working from home. There's a question about schools going forward, online learning and all that. What is that going to, if that takes hold, is there going to be an impact on the actual school buildings? So those are some of the issues that we're looking at, and it's just time will tell. We'll have to see what's going to happen with that.
Now, when you say the uses of the buildings could change, do you think it's possible to look at how buildings are built in general? Could that change too?
Well, I think we've already started we've had the advent of changing design and different parts of buildings for safety and health issues. We've seen that for a long time. So I think I don't see a huge change in the way buildings are being built, because we have started with environmental issues. The construction industry has been very ahead of the curve on that, I feel. Environmentally friendly buildings, healthy buildings, in terms of the removal of materials that were dangerous, asbestos, lead, mold issues. The construction industry has been pretty, like I said, ahead of the curve on all that. So I don't think there's going to be a change in the way we do things, but it's going to be more a change of what the use of the buildings.
Now, while we're talking about change, do you foresee any possible building code changes?
Well, there might be. Again, the main reason that we have the building codes is for health and safety issues. That's the primary reason. So I think one of the things we might see is going to be more in terms of PPE, personal protection equipment that's required during the application of the buildings for the construction workers. I think right now we're seeing that the projects that we're on right now, they all require masks, face masks. For years we've been using safety goggles and gloves and things of that nature. So I think it's going to be more in that end, PPE, and there might be some variances on when some of these types of constructions can be completed. But I think that's going to be the main impact that we'll see with codes.
Now, besides the use of PPE, have you seen any changes on your construction sites due to COVID yet?
Oh yeah. So the main thing that we're seeing is the access to the site. It's pretty similar to what you're hearing about for all commercial buildings, even, well, not so much stores anymore, but commercial buildings. For instance, the sites that we're working on, the first thing is you have to, before you can get access to the site, you have to go through a process. The first process is that, first of all, common sense will tell you if you feel any symptoms, sickness or anything, you shouldn't be going to work, shouldn't be going on the site. So that's the first thing. The second thing is we're seeing that they have to take your temperature. They're taking your temperature, and once they take your temperature, that determines whether you can get on site or not. The other thing is the 3 standard questions that I'm sure most people have seen. Going to the first question being, have you traveled in the last 14 days? The second question is if you've had COVID and are tested positive for COVID. And then the third question is if you've been around anybody that has COVID. So those 3 questions, if you answer yes to any of those 3, then you're not allowed to be on the site. And we've seen it, we've seen that enforced on these sites. So those are the main things. And then once you're on site, you have to follow the guidance, the CDC guidance. Again, like I mentioned, the mask, always wear a mask. This is true for the exterior building construction also. We're seeing on our projects, they're all outside, but they're requiring masks, and you have to try to stay 6 feet distance where you can. I think that's more on inside of the building. Again, some of these, it's not possible in some of the construction activities to be within less than 6 feet of people, but and then I'm sure there are other projects out there that are testing people on a daily basis. We haven't, on the projects we're on, we haven't seen the daily testing, but that might come into play also at some point.
Well, speaking of that, have any of your projects been impacted by COVID transmission at all?
There was one early on, and it wasn't from, first of all, I'm not aware of anybody on any of our sites that have actually tested positive for COVID or had COVID being on the site. That's the first thing I want to state. We did have a project early on, right within the first couple weeks of them allowing us to go back to work. Mm-hmm. At that point, one of the contractors' personnel answered yes to one of the questions, and the question was, "Have you been around anybody that has COVID?" And apparently, this person's mother-in-law watched their kids. Mm-hmm. She had tested positive for COVID. So, again, this was right within the beginning of this whole thing. Within the first couple of weeks. So the project was shut down, shut down the project for the day. And then we had meetings, and everyone decided that the person involved had to get a test. He tested negative for COVID, so he was allowed to come back to work, but the project was shut down. And at this point, I think what they're doing now is, if anybody answers yes to any of those 3 questions, I think they're just keeping them off the site. I don't think they're going through the process of, unless somebody, obviously, if somebody tests positive for COVID and they've been on that project, then I think those rules would apply, that they would have to quarantine and test people. So.
Going back to a building code question, how quickly do you think we could see a change in building codes? Could it be within a year? Could it take up to 5 years?
Well, changing the codes it could be a long process. Something like this, though, which is a health issue, health and safety issue, this could be something I could see that they might mandate this right away. If it's something as simple as wearing masks. I'm not aware of any other changes they might make, but I think right now we're in a state of the industry where everyone's just waiting to see what's going to happen.
Mhm.
We all hope that this is just a short-term thing, but we don't know. We don't know if this is something we're going to deal with every year. But
Right.
um,
Well, one last question to pick your brain. Do you see any other changes in the industry? Do you think like we have a material shortage from suppliers because everyone's been shut down for so long and now everyone's getting back up and there's such a great need for things right now?
yeah, there's the impact of. I think there's two answers to this question. There's how we're dealing with COVID, and then the actual COVID itself, the flu type symptoms. But then the second thing is how this, I believe, how the industry is going to change, and really the whole world is going to change. I think after this, from seeing through the shutdown, I think technology. We're finding that technology has changed. For instance, we're able to do this a meeting like this on Zoom. So I'm seeing a lot more project meetings being held in this type of manner, where people don't have to necessarily, most of the time, people don't have to travel to the sites. With technology, with building exterior construction, what we've seen in the last several years is the use of technology for such as drones or Google Earth, where contractors are using these types of services to actually take measurements or look at facilities for bidding purposes. So they don't necessarily have to go out on the site. And then obviously people can work from remote locations for the most part. The big difference that the only thing that is not going to impact the construction industry, at least the exterior construction industry, is the fact that any work, we cannot do the work remotely. We have to be on the building. So that's the first phase of the answer. The second phase of the answer, like you mentioned, we are seeing material shortages. Some of them pretty significant. We have had to change materials on some of the projects we're working on right now because of the fact that materials were not available that we required. I'm hearing of consolidation. I've heard of some larger manufacturers might perhaps be for sale. So we're going to see consolidation of the market. The labor issue, that was a huge issue before the COVID shutdown. Unfortunately, it's worse now. A lot of contractors that we're dealing with are having a hard time getting people to come back to work. There's reasons for that.
Mm-hmm.
We can go into those at a different time, but the labor shortages is huge. I think ordering materials, contractors are probably going to become more apt to order materials online and have delivery right to the site. So we're going to get away from, it's going to change distribution. So it's going to have a huge impact. I think some of these changes were already starting to be in place. And I think the shutdown kind of accelerated some of these changes. Like I mentioned, buildings aren't going to go away, but their uses might go away. I've heard that online retail, I think I heard something like 90% of the people prefer online retail.
Yeah.
So I don't think shopping malls, obviously some of the bigger box stores are starting to have issues. More people are ordering online. So the buildings that the malls are in might not go away, but they might become distribution centers. It's going to change. That's where the impact is, I think. Very
interesting. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, John. It's been wonderful to pick your brain, and I'm sure we'll be chatting again soon.
Thank you, Lindsay. Have a great day.